Hi, everybody. My name is Porai Moshesh. I'm a pediatric intensivist. That's an ICU specialist for children. Currently a pediatric intensivist at Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital. I assisted in commissioning and opening the ICU in 2018, and I'm the current head of unit at this moment at the hospital. I decided to do pediatrics because mainly, to be honest, I love children. I've always loved children from a very young age. I love their resilience and I love how forgiving they are and how they don't seem to get put down by anything thrown their way. Even as a young girl at school, one of my favorite tasks was after school, collecting and making sure all the young ones had their school bags and that they were ready to board our transport back home. So, and I've always loved medicine. I've gotten the most joy out of children because you can never count them out, and they'll always surprise you. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, maybe let me start by saying I'm grateful that we were afforded the opportunity to partner with the 1cc Foundation. Critically ill children, maybe put it this way, generally children are often the most forgotten part of our population, and they've got highly changing physiology throughout from the time they're newborn till they are of mature age. And they often don't tolerate transportation very well or handling, especially when they're critically ill. And this hospital accepts children from other provinces as well. And the hospitals are very scarcely, populated. So therefore, children have to travel very long distances. So the beauty about us having 1cc Foundation is then having the knowledge that our children will get the best care possible during transportation. Because as much as it's important to get the child to ICU, if the initial stabilization, the transportation, the management throughout the transportation of the child to the destination is not optimal, your outcomes at the end, which is your ICU, which is us, will not be as good as it is. There's nothing more devastating than a child coming in with gastroenteritis and a mild pneumonia and just not being able to cope and needing a little bit of ventilatory support maybe for a few days. And this is a child who should be and is expected to do a full recovery and ends up having a severe brain injury or even dying en route or on arrival. It's quite devastating because that's not a child that ordinarily should die from such. And so having the ability to know that the team has arrived at base and you get a full-on update of what is transpiring at base, and if things need to change or therapy needs to be escalated, or that the patient really isn't safe to be moved at this point in time, they need more resuscitation, is important because then you can also change the way you're going to manage the patient once they arrive at your own institution. And so the experience I've had has been wonderful in that we've had blow by blow, literally, of what is happening with the child once they arrive en route, and I have the ability to be able to view exactly what they're doing en route. And I don't just have to rely on what they have to say en route. And we've got a good relationship with the guys en route and good respect for each other. And it's good to know that it's a highly qualified and highly skilled team who can even offer some therapies that are quite advanced that most ordinary ambulance services or most paramedics maybe or EMS service providers may not be able to provide. And so the last child was extremely unstable, who most times we would have declined a transfer and maybe asked that the child waits overnight, which, to be honest, would not have been appropriate for the child at the end of the day, or rather ideal for the child, because the setup where they found themselves at, it was not an ideal environment. They were being ventilated in a ward. However, the child was literally just borderline for transfer. So we knew pre-transfer en route that this child was going to require high frequency of ventilation. And on arrival, we were ready. We were ready with our nitrobes. We were ready with all the drugs that we needed. And until the child arrived, and the team waited with us to make sure that the child had had a smooth transition and been transferred to our bed, and we had started our own therapy before they left us. And we got a good handover, because also it's very important to get a good handover from the team that's transporting the patient. And it shouldn't just be an issue of moving from one place to another. And I think, as I've said, the sicker the child, the more intolerant they are of being handled and movement. And often, crashes and resuscitations occur at the attempt to move them. Also, we have got a high bed pressure of beds. And so often, sometimes, we need to move one patient to another institution so that we can create a bed for another patient. Just like everyone else world over, we also have staff shortages, and especially highly skilled staff members. So there's always 2-3 more children that require that same bed that one child is occupying. And therefore, it's very important that once you've received a request and a child who would benefit from that bed space gets transferred to you as quickly as possible, because the one that's occupying the bed, who no longer has use or need for that bed, can be moved safely as well back to base. I think patients going back where they came from is just as important as bringing patients to the ICU. It defeats the purpose that the child arrives at their destination post-ICU in a worse or deteriorated state than they are in. And so I think it's a very valuable relationship, and we are very excited and proud that we are in this situation that we find ourselves in. And so I'd like to thank the ICC Foundation. All right, so the vision mission of building this hospital from the get-go was to ensure that no child is denied health care because of race, creed, financial, availability on their parents' side. Their socioeconomic status doesn't matter and doesn't change what type of care they get. State is not as well resourced, obviously, as the private EMS services. And I think there is a huge need of skilled EMS service providers, both in the state and the private sector. I don't think there's enough emergency service providers to offer the service that is required for the South African population already in general. And so a child who is on a medical aid or is privately funded, you could argue then that would have an unfair advantage sometimes versus the child who has no funding or who comes from a poor background, in the sense that the other child can afford advanced life support, EMS providers to come and collect the child or retrieve the child if they're unwell, for instance, for things like ECMO, retrieval, and be offered those things, or even a child who may not necessarily need ECMO or ECLS at that point in time. But generally, the most unstable child who requires a lot of inotropic support and a lot of drug therapy en route, it would mean then, if we don't have enough, we know in Gauteng we don't have enough advanced life service providers, nor even the vehicles that can provide that support. So this is wonderful that we have this, because this adds on, this doesn't take away from what the Gauteng service providers provide already, but it just augments and I think it complements what is already there. So the state patient, for lack of a better word, or the child who doesn't come from a well-resourced environment gets the same opportunities. And so then it would tie in exactly with our mission, vision, and values. And so that's where ICC comes in. It makes sure all children that are deserving get the same treatment as well, and that funds don't come into play as to what can a child receive or not. Also, importantly, Nelson Mandela, yes, offers both private and state, healthcare. The idea for us, and what is important for us, is that all children receive the same and equal care, and that having a medical aid, really a credit card, shouldn't determine what one gets and what one doesn't get. And so definitely having OneCC changes that landscape. All children get to have the same treatment, basically. Yeah. I think, as Nelson Mandela says, a nation that doesn't take care of their children really isn't doing the best, that they should be. They deserve the best in all aspects, and healthcare is one of those. It's a basic human right. And so to all the other organizations that are out there, we are here, and our other sister hospitals like Charlotte, Rahima, who also provide, etc., George Mukari, Steve Biko, etc., in the Gauteng Center. And those that I might not have mentioned, we offer, critical care services for children, and we could do a lot more with a lot more funding. What 1CC is doing is wonderful, but they can't do it all by themselves alone. No child should be left behind, because unfortunately, as much as, yes, 1CC is there will be those that will still not be able to get and be afforded the same service. And that all health workers must continue fighting the good fight. And as I said, being resuscitated well and accordingly at base, being transferred safely and appropriately, receiving the correct treatment at the right time, and reaching your destination adequately resourced and stable and in one piece, really, for lack of a better word, is just as important. And as healthcare workers, we should not accept mediocrity. We should not be tolerant. We should not always try and improvise. Yes, the wonderful thing about being a healthcare worker in South Africa is we can improvise and manage to work in each and every situation. But our children deserve more than us always trying to basically be plumbers and mechanics in every situation. So we should keep on the good fight and ask all organizations to come to the party and serve our children as we should, and make Mandiba's dream come alive.